Good morning, community. Welcome to Stuck the Journey Within podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Alva. I've got a real special guest for today, stroke survivor Sybil Jones. I try to keep this podcast real. And I had a comment the other day on a podcast that said, hey, don't tell me how great it is. Tell me how hard it is, how I can deal with it, how I can overcome. So, my goal over this next future podcast is to make sure that you know that we're here for you. And we're not going to I'm just talking. We're not gonna just tell you how great it is, but I'm going to tell you how to deal with hard things. Because honestly, stroke is probably the hardest thing I think a person can go through on earth. Honestly, so when you don't think you're strong enough, you are. You're a survivor. You're surviving something, and that that it's the hardest thing I think I've seen anybody go through. I know it's the hardest thing I've ever went through. I've got Sybil Jones ready loaded, ready to go. So let's bring her online. It's a pre-recorded podcast. So let me get going. Here we go. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Talk, the Journey Within podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Outline, and I got a special stroke survivor for you this morning. Believe it or not, coming to you from the Middle East. And her name's Sybil Jones. And I'm really excited to let's just jump right into it. I'll bring her on and Billy Popper. Well, good morning, Sybil.
Hello, Aaron.
You are coming from the Middle East.
Yes.
Wow, I did not expect that. That kind of set me back a little bit. Great to have you. Thank you for being here, Sybil.
Thank you. I think it's evening over here. It's almost my bedtime
That's
here.
right. We're just talking about that. But hey, now, Sybil, you are a stroke survivor. You had your stroke at the young age of 41, I think you said. Why did you first introduce yourself formally, and then just head right into your story?
All right. So my name is Sybil Jones, and I am a stroke survivor. I'm a mother of 3 teenage girls, and I am a Navy spouse, which is why I'm now here in Bahrain. I had my stroke at 43. At that time, we were living in Washington, D.C., and I had no indications of a stroke, no health risk, nothing. Carotid webbing, a rare cause. And, I kind of joke a little bit about it, but to know me having a rare cause for stroke, it kind of fits, right? Because I'm a rare individual.
Now, so you had no early warning signs before your stroke? Because you told me in the green room before the podcast, you were at a party. And tell me a little about what happened during that time that you were told. You don't remember, but tell me what happened.
Yes, we were at a party for my husband. It was April 17th of 2021. we were preparing to PCS or move, as the military calls it, a PCS, from Washington, D.C. to San Diego. So we're literally at a party. I was doing what I do best, talk. I jokingly say that my gift of gab saved my life, because I was just literally talking. But earlier that day, can I back up to
Please,
earlier that day?
please.
I had been out with my daughter. My middle daughter rides horses. So I had been out at the barn with her all day, running errands. I felt fine. I had no indications of feeling ill. I never felt sick, nothing. I was perfectly fine. I was the designated driver that night because the party was for my husband. So, let him enjoy his time, have maybe 3 drinks instead of 2. So I'm like, hey, I'm the designated driver. We were eating dinner, talking, having a good time. He was sitting at a separate table because, again, I'm a talker. And there's a period of time that I do not recall. So this is just from what I've been told. One of the gentlemen next to me said that he noticed my speech slur, but he thought I was joking. He was like, I thought you were just telling a story, but he's like, no. I couldn't see anything. Like, I do remember everything just going black and voices then faint. But I thought, like there was a split second that I was thinking, maybe, because I was drinking a beer, but I only had a couple of sips. But he said he ran down, got my husband. This was all within a matter of seconds. And my husband said that by the time he got to the end of the table, he had looked down and he said I had a blank stare on my face. So he thought I was upset with him. But, I'm like, dude, I don't even recall seeing you. Like, what? But he said he came down and the full left side of my face had drooped. So full paralysis and unconscious, slapped my face on the table. And I joke, here's another little, and I think it's more so for myself when I make these jokes. I'm like, at least I didn't mess up my face. We were at a brewery. The party was at a brewery. So it's a picnic table, right? I was like, okay. I don't recall anything. I just remember waking up in the hospital, being asked if I knew where I was, what happened. There were tubes coming out of, and I'm like, no, I don't know where I am. I don't know why I'm here, other than y'all just keep telling me I had a stroke. But how did I have a stroke? That, because I had no health concerns, none whatsoever.
Now, did you know the man that actually helped save your life, the guy that saw the early signs of stroke, the slurred speech? I mean, he immediately got your husband. That right there really helped you a lot. So did you know, or was he a stranger?
He actually worked with my husband. So everyone around us that evening, they worked with my husband. I had never met them though. And I did get to visit with them before we left DC, because I ended up being in the hospital for a week, in ICU, and then they moved me to the stroke unit, and they searched for the cause of my stroke, which comes to find out it was a rare cause called carotid webbing. Like, whoa, kind of fits with me, right? I'm a rare individual.
Love your energy. That's great. Carotid webbing. I don't think I've ever heard of that. What does that mean, carotid webbing?
So here in my carotid artery, it's a like extra shelf in your carotid artery that it makes it thin. It's a thin membrane that's there. So a little extra, I just call it my little extra skin that was there that caused the blood here to it continue to circulate. And they believe that particular day it circulated and then it just got caught in the spin and it broke loose, blood clot to the brain. They said it was deep within the right center side of my brain.
Now, what deficit, I'm curious, what deficit did you have then? Obviously, you looked like you didn't have stroke. Which I know I've met several people like it that are fortunate enough. But what deficit did you have that you don't have now that you're keep pulled out of that you actually rebuild your life from?
My left side weakness. So, and I still deal with left side weakness and numbness. And Aaron, this is probably very personal, but I think it's important to share. When I say it, this is kind of personal, but
Go ahead,
it's
go ahead.
my entire left side of my body. So when I say my entire left side of my body, once I was cleared to get back to life, I am married, so I'm grown. Again, this is a little hard for me to say, but
No, I'll tell you, I think I knew you were going. So during sex,
yeah,
you have a numbness, you have a numb sensation, which is very odd. And I think it's great we're talking about this because it needs to be talked about. Part of stroke, it's what's real about stroke. So, and you're very fortunate that now, so you sense that you were feeling a dullness, a no sensation.
yes. And like when I first talked to my doctor about it, I was like, I don't really know how to explain the entire left side, because people, you think, oh, your arm, your leg, which
Right,
I
right.
do have, I
Not
do
your
have,
vagina or
dullness in
something.
my foot. There's times, even still to this day, when I'm walking, like I just don't feel the ground. Like there isn't, and I just have to mentally say, you're fine. Your left leg is making connection with the ground. You're fine. Just keep walking. But for the longest, like I just could not, like I was terrified to walk. I was terrified. Like I would pick things up and drop it because I just couldn't feel it with my left hand. But people are like, oh, but you look normal. You're fine. I'm like, yeah, I look fine, but there's the invisible deficits that you don't see.
People, I want to take a pause for 1 second. That invisible thing, the simplest talking about it, it's like, because I'm pretty honest. I sound like I'm a thud, but there are many stroke survivors out there, brain injury survivors, but there are many stroke survivors out there that have invisible deficits. You look at Sybil and say, "Oh, well, she's just a stroke survivor." Well, she is. She is a stroke survivor now. So you had that numbness when you first had your stroke. So you still deal with a little bit of that now, where your left arm is like numb. Speech is doing great, but you have a lot you get for gab, which you told me earlier. Light the talks, which is really great. Now, what did your husband do? I'm curious. I picked your husband coming over to the table, seeing you there at the table, people around him telling him she's having a stroke. What happened during that? What's the reaction?
He said that as soon as he saw me, when he got to the end of the table, that he knew it was a stroke because his grandmother had a stroke when he was younger. So he immediately called 911, told the dispatchers, my wife is having a stroke. And they were there immediately, took me to, we were living in Northern Virginia at the time. So I went to Inova Fairfax Hospital. And it wasn't Fairfax. It was Inova. There was another Inova hospital. They took me there, administered the TPA. Is it the TPA? TPA? Whatever.
Yeah, TPA, yeah, yeah.
And it didn't take. Which my husband said they had asked him about administering it. He was like, yes. They were like, it didn't take. We need to transport her. And, he was like, they were telling him what they could do and what they needed him to sign. And he was like, that was hard for him because we had daughters. We had 3 daughters at home. Our oldest was actually out that night with her softball team. And so he said, while I was in surgery, she had called my phone to ask if she could stay out later. One of his coworkers went to our house and stayed with the younger 2 kids. And which, she just told him, hey, your mom, there's an emergency. I'll be with you until your dad can get home. Okay. But he said that when the oldest, she was 16 at the time. So my kids were 16, 14, and 12 at the time. Called to see if she could stay out later. He told her no. And she asked, and he yelled at her. And he is not a yeller. He's like, no, you've got to go home now. So and then he ended up having to tell her what was going on. So she got home and told her sisters what was going on.
Well, you don't need to talk about this. I think it's kind of, we need to bring it up because I had my stroke at age 47 and brain injury stroke at age 47. But most people like myself and like you, what I understand, we talked about, that we always thought stroke happened to 80-year-old people, not young people like us.
Right.
So that's what we want to tell. But one thing I want the podcast to realize, it doesn't happen to tell people, look, Sybil, look at me. Sybil, you had said you're 42, right? 43.
I was 43 when I had my stroke.
Okay. You were 43, I was 47. I know younger people even than us that had stroke. So it does happen. So out there, the signs that Sybil saw, the slurred speech, face drooping, arm weakness. I mean, those are all 911 right away.
Right away.
That guy, Sybil, that guy that realized you had slurred speech at the beginning, he actually is one that actually instigated save your help, save your life.
Yes. And I got to see him before we moved. So let me back up a little bit of being in the hospital. I was in the hospital at the tail end of COVID, right?
Oh, great.
2021. But while I was in the hospital, they were trying to determine the cause of my stroke, which that's when they figured the carotid one. So I now have and I had a little one that I used to keep on my desk, but when we moved, it got lost somewhere in the move. But I have a stent here in my right carotid artery now, here in my neck. I call it my snazzy neck jewelry. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
My snazzy neck jewelry. So after I was discharged from the stroke, I went home, and then a couple of weeks later, I went back in the hospital for the stent placement. But when we were cleared to move, because my husband was supposed to have been leaving, going to San Diego in May, and I was going to move with my daughters in June when school was out. But the Navy did push him back. They were like, okay, we're going to allow you to stay in DC with your wife until she is cleared to move. So we all did move to San Diego in June, and I continued my care there. But before we left for San Diego, I did meet with the guy. We had them come over. They came over for dinner, and I'm not a hugger, but I hugged him, and I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you. He could have easily, although he was part of the party, could have easily dismissed me.
Yeah.
Like, what is this lady doing? What's wrong with her?
I know you got a brewery, you have slurred speech. I mean, come on. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, people, oh, you're drinking beer, although it was just a little bit of beer that I had, but it could have been easily dismissed as, oh. And now anytime I'm out, if I see anyone who their balance is off a little bit or I hear a slight slur, I stop. I'm like, hey, because I want to know, whoa, whoa, whoa. Is this a stroke or have you had too many to drink?
All right, Sybil, I want to touch on that for one side because it's really, really important. I mean, my podcast, we really want to raise stroke awareness. And I think here you see this. I'm just amazed at that because people listen for people having slurred speech, listen for them acting funny and mentally, cognitively funny. Don't assume they're drunk. I knew one stroke survivor that was going to a bank and he began to get real slurred speech. He began to fall over, and either cop came up to him and assumed he was drunk. They were going to arrest him, and he was having a stroke. And he goes, I'm not, I haven't, he's trying to speak, can't speak. Anyway, that became real bomb. So I'm saying, like, so I'm going to do the same thing, because listen for people, listen for those signs of stroke, because you could save someone's life.
Yes. Yes. I'm always vigilant now. If I'm out, I'm like, are they okay? Or if I see someone like and they because like for me, I didn't have any signs to say, oh, let me go sit down and rest. There was nothing. It was just kind of like boom, it hit.
Boom, yeah.
But I'm like, if I see someone seems to be acting a little
Off.
off, let me go make sure they're okay.
Okay.
Like I do think about those things. And even when I don't have a slur because I listen to myself speak all the time now, but when I talk, I hear a slur. Even talking to you right now, I hear a slur when I speak, and my tongue always feels heavy. Like my tongue, like and I will say, Aaron, I am a little self-conscious. Like I used to love, and I still talk to people, but I now have to work up to talking to people. But doing videos, I used to love doing videos, but I'm so self-conscious now. So getting myself together today, I was like, come on, Sybil, you can do this. You can do this.
Well,
You
I'm
can
going to tell you, Sybil, I've been doing this for about 7 years. I mean, your energy, don't be afraid to let your light shine because it's great. And I think you're uh, watching for people's signs of stroke, that slurred speech is something we can all learn from because just so people know, the definition is fast. Be fast. Face
yes,
dripping. Arm drooping, meaning if you think someone's having a stroke, put your arms out, but one more droop. Speech is slurred. I still have it. I have dyslexia, slurred speech. And then time. You think anybody's having, look what happened with Sybil. You think anybody is having any signs of stroke, even if you're wrong. I would rather, and Sybil would rather, have you go to the hospital and get checked out than not at all. Because most people, Sybil, out there, they know it. They brush the I'm just tired. I need to sit down. I'm just whatever.
yes. And the time is so important because that's one thing which my husband didn't talk to me about it for months after. Um, and he finally sat down and he talked to me about it. And he was like, look, because, I'm like, dude, I'm fine. I'm fine. He was like, look, he was like, time was of the essence. If we were anywhere else that night, he's like, you would not be here
Possibly, yes.
right now. I was like, oh, he was like, no, he's like, Sybil, seriously. He was like, it is a miracle that you are sitting here, standing here, talking to me right now. And I'm like, no, dear, no. He was like, no. And I have thought about that too, because on most evenings, I'm like, I would have been home in the bed. Like, like
Yeah,
my poor husband rolled over and I looked at my scans and I was like, oh, I was like, that's my brain. I'm like, oh my gosh, like
Huh.
this is. I'm like, I really had a stroke. Like this wasn't a warning shot. Like I really had a full blown severe stroke. I'm like, thank God for everyone who was around me, for the medical team, and for the surgeon who he said he argued my case for a week about the cause of it. And then my
Well,
husband agreeing for them to go in and because I went back to the hospital for the stent placement. I was only supposed to be in for a day. It was a day procedure. Well, I stayed an entire week
wow.
because my blood pressure plummeted and they couldn't stabilize it. I'm like, I can't do anything simple, right?
It means thank you, a great support team. Really, thank you, has been very supportive. I want to pause a minute because I have the most respect for people that serve our country. Let's give your husband, would you please mention his name, what branch of service in? I'm going to pause and say they can serve in the country.
Okay. Um, he is Navy Captain Marcus Jones.
Captain.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, well, Marcus Jones, thank you for serving our country. I want to pause, take a minute, because I have a lot of respect for people like you. And thank you very much for serving our country. So, anyway, Sybil, now I'm curious. Were you able to walk your time? Here's a prime example. There's a window of time that occurs after stroke. They cannot administer TPA. So tell me a little about the TPA? Do you remember anything from that time when you were in the hospital?
I do not. Just from what my husband told me, that they administered the TPA, it did not work. So they transported me to Fairfax. I was at a different Inova hospital in Virginia. They transported me to Inova Fairfax, where they ended up doing a thrombectomy. So they went in through my groin
I,
and
I
up through and into the brain and pulled out the clot, which I asked my husband. I was like, did you ask to keep it? He's like,
I don't think I've ever been said that on my podcast. Did you keep that blood clot?
I'm like, did you keep it? Did you get a picture of it?
Yeah,
Anything?
but more, it's kind of like a remembrance of a memento from the occasion,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. He was like, Sybil, I wasn't thinking anything about
Oh
that.
my gosh, that's what
He's
it
like, I was scared and I was trying. And I'm like, but
is.
that's where my mind went. Like, did you keep it?
Yeah, you definitely, you should be on social. I don't know your social media, but I'm telling you, you should be on social media because your energy is great. But so I want to think if then what would you tell? We're down the last 3 minutes of the podcast. What advice would you give a newer stroke survivor? Say someone just had a stroke. You, what advice would you give them?
Oh, well, Aaron, my first piece of advice would be for me to put my glasses on when I'm spelling out stroke, because I'm looking at where I type stroke survivor and I'm just seeing that I misspelled stroke. So make sure you know how to.
Okay, well, I can't.
Sorry. Joke. Bad joke. I'm just saying that when I typed it out, I'm like, Sybil, we probably needed your glasses. Sorry.
All right, let's don't worry about that. Honey, really don't
But
worry.
no, my piece of advice for a stroke survivor would be to give yourself grace. That would be my first piece of advice.
Great advice.
To give yourself grace, because I understand. You're like, I want to do. You want to be. You want to get back to your old self, right? Like, oh, I can do this. I can go back to doing what I was doing before my stroke. It's okay. It's okay. Things are going to be different. Things are going to be different for you, even if your deficits are invisible. Things will be different, and take care of your mental health. Um, you know, after stroke, I know everyone focuses on the physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy, but have someone you can talk to. Um,
Yeah, you have talked about the other bit. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just think mindset. I told you that I believe as Stroke TV CEO and Stroke TV media that most people out there say, "Oh, I want to get back, they recover." Well, I hate to tell you the truth. You won't recover. You're not going to recover. You're going to rebuild your life. You rebuild a more meaningful life than ever I had. And like a lot of people, but you're not going to recover who you were. You will always be a stroke survivor. And I really, I think Sybil brings up a really, really good point. I mean, be patient with yourself. You're seeing Sybil, who has very hidden deficits. You see me who has very obvious deficits. But we're still both stroke survivors, survived something killed most people. Sybil, I cannot thank you enough for being here. I really, really want to thank you for being here.
oh, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time. I thank you again. Thank you for the separate country. Thank you for letting people know we're out there. Thank you very much. Bye,
Thank you.
Sybil. Bye.
Bye.
Set me on fire.